Hello and welcome back to what seems to have become a regular tri-monthly program on this channel, I guess. Yeah, review of the cards that are rotating out. So next expansion is coming within a few days, so I thought it's finally time to look back at what we are gonna lose in Azvaldt. Now, Azvaldt is one of the biggest expansions I think we've received in quite a while, both in terms of power and thematically, so it's definitely a big shame to see this one go. It's also the first expansion that I started making videos. So a bit of, I guess, worth considering for me, I guess, on that point. Although I'm not sure who cares about that part. So yeah, anyway, we're just gonna go ahead and jump in and look at what are rotating out and what we might be able to expect from the expansion. Worth noting, I might be recording this before a few days before I actually upload it. So at this point in time, we've seen up to Ania. I haven't seen anything else that's been revealed yet, if anything else has been revealed after Ania. So yeah, let's just jump in and look at what we are losing, starting with the neutral card. So neutral is losing Starsitter. Starsitter saw surprisingly some play in Shadow and Burial Shadow. VR Shadow was a meta deck, as well as Steffi at the start because of her ability to be a 1PP tempo play without losing a card in hand. The followers it adds to your hand maybe not that good, but when you're playing Burial, right, or Sephi, what matters is you have that follower in your hand. Right now, if you're playing Sephi, you're still playing Angelic Starsitter, so yeah, definitely surprisingly a useful card for what it looks like a 1PP bronze take 2 looking card, but it's actually surprisingly seen some play. Owlcat Girl next card. I think it saw some fringe play in like Evil Blood decks here and there, but mostly I don't think anyone played this deck card. Not particularly good for anything, honestly. Angelic Strike, I don't think this card was really played, maybe like as a one-off in like... I think I've seen it in Enhanced Portal sometimes for some reason, but they're not really played either, this card. Winged Inversion, of course, extremely huge card. It's worth noting at this point in time we've seen that there is a decent amount of spell boost support for a rune next expansion, so it's a bit of a shame that they are losing Winged Inversion, because Winged Inversion, no class abused this card as hard as Rune. Well, maybe no, that's not true. Or Forest also abuses this card, but yeah, Rune definitely abused this card really hard when Spell Boost was still playable, with the ability to play this card for basically 0 PP and get drain out of it as well. It's also extremely absurdly efficient removal tool. By using it to transform any opponent follower, it gets around banish and destruction protection, and it removes last words. So yeah, and also it prevents leaving play effects. So yeah, really powerful card that is definitely a shame to lose, but maybe we don't really want spell boost to get access to this. Yeah, Winged Inversion, definitely powerful card that is a bit of a shame to see go. Next we have Azvaldt, the core card of a lot of maybe not that many, but a bunch of Azvaldt related decks ran this. Nagachio ran this, Bahamut Dragon ran this, I think. Cutthroat ran this. Last Words is of course a big hit for Last Words, is losing this card among other cards that we'll look at later, but yeah, definitely a big loss for Last Words here. And is that it? We even ran this in Spell Boost sometimes just to guarantee draw Simiel, so that's a pretty powerful card. And when it was first released, we were talking about how it's an amulet to purposely nerf the draw power because spells that draw cards are too strong. So yeah, this is an amulet. Yeah, pretty strong card that well, it's a strong card, but since the entire whole Condemn thing is rotating out, maybe we don't really care that Azvaldt is going right now. Yeah. Next is Alice. Alice is of course extremely huge card, the supporting power of every Evolve deck since she was released until now. We played it in every Evolve deck. Evo and Evil Forest was a thing, you played Alice in it. When Evil Sword is a thing now with Neutral Sword, we are losing Alice. We definitely want... Honestly, losing Alice probably kills Neutral Sword, I think. It's just too good, like 2 PP for removal, card draw, and as well as Storm. Like, it's just too big of a hole to fill, right? I guess Rune didn't play it. Buff Dragon, when it was still running an Evo package, ran Alice as well, and that helped them do damage as well as draw cards, which is nasty. Evo Blood, of course, we do see that with Blood is getting Evo support, so it's, well, Alice doesn't really synergize that well with the mono that we've seen. Maybe not that big of a deal, although the fact that she draws some free evols probably would have helped Evo Blood if he wasn't rotating out. And yeah, there are some Evo Haven weird things you can do. Evo Portal as well, definitely hates to lose Alice. Yeah, extremely impactful card. She does a lot of things for just 2 PP. Yeah, definitely a big shame to see this one go. Angelic Punisher, I don't think anyone played this card at any point, so we can just skip that. Explorer of Mysteries, a weird looking, kind of pointless looking card that ended up seeing a little bit of use. Cornelius used this for a 1 PP 3 damage. Or maybe not every Cornelius list ran this, but if you were playing Cornelius, this was an option for you to use to get some damage in for OTK with just 1 PP. And then we see now Lena Bishop is, or some lists are running this as a 1 PP card that you can play that costs at least 5, so you can add the Lena's condition for cheap that way. And also the fact that he has Rush just helps you deal with the board, so yeah. Probably not a big deal to see this one go. I think it's a very replaceable card. Angel of Chaos mostly didn't see play. The few times it did was in that board lock dragon list where you turn your entire opponent's board into fallen angels and then lock them while you use the dragon that can't be attacked. You just hit your opponent in the face until they died. That was something, certainly. And then we see this now in Sephi as well with the Vengeful Hack OTK. So yeah, well, Sephi's rotating out, so I guess it's not a big deal to lose this along with Sephi. I don't think any other decks really cared to play Angel of Chaos, so that's fine. Bottom of Recurrence, mostly a Magachio deck, but Magachio itself is gone as well, so this card doesn't really matter either at this point. Narella, one of the great meme cards of our time. Fortunately, never really had a deck that could play it super well, so it didn't really get touched on much. Yeah, there goes Zerael, I guess, one less meme in our rotation to play with. That seems to be a bit for the neutral cards. Overall, some pretty huge losses here, especially Winged Inversion and Alice, I think, are the biggest hits by far in this neutral setup, but it's only gonna get worse as we go on. So let's move on to the forest cards next after I drink a bit of water. So these are the forest cards that we will be losing. So we have Budding Initiate, which, I mean, I guess we can just evaluate most of the Magachio package together. Budding Initiate and Magachio, I guess, evaluate the same way, which are over, like, so they're sort of there. They were sort of there at first, and now they are like sort of like kind of in the limelight. I think the only reason why they're not played as much is because the opportunity cost of not being able to play Castel if you play Magachio. And that Magachio is actually not a bad deck. It's pretty solid, pretty strong deck right now, actually, I think. It's pretty difficult to stop combo if you don't know what you're doing, and even if you do know what you're doing, they still have a lot of cards that can just get around various ways you might try to stop their combo. So yeah, one less very stressful deck to play against, I guess, when they rotate out, but it's also one less option for Forest, although they do have Castel, so I think they're fine on that front. So yeah, we're losing one entire archetype here with Magachio and Initiate both gone. As for the other condemned cards, let's cover them first before we go. Initiate Assassin ended up being cut from Magachio list early on when they realized that you rather just as your Budding Initiate search narrowed down to just the key targets of Magachio and the Warden of Recurrence we looked at earlier. So yeah, this card ended up not being very relevant. You would just play removal spells like Winged Inversion over using this to try and remove enemy followers. And Verdant Lieutenant also cut from Magachio early on, but in her case she was used quite a bit, I think, in a more tempo oriented list, just as a way for card for to replenish their hand with card draw, especially with a very fun fact comboing. Very fun fact and Plumeria comboing really well into her ability to evo when an allied follower evolves. So yeah, pretty solid draw engine that I guess we're losing. Probably not able to play any evil forest lists with Verdant Lieutenant gone because it was such a strong draw engine. Yeah, bit of a shame to lose that, I guess. And then Warden of Bounds ended up not really seeing much play. Even it's like the crystallized one counter one to draw a card, so it's a cycle. You can bounce it and draw even more cards. But yeah, I don't think any decks ended up being able to use this card very well. There's also the main body effect, which is actually weirdly strong, I think, but just never really had a chance to use it for anything because while it's strong, it's not strong enough for rotations. And then finally we have Wimmael as part of the condemned cards. Wimmael saw play in Hozumi that I don't think we expected, or maybe not. I don't think a lot of people expected Wimmael to become the monstrosity that it was when it was first released. At first, it just seemed like a really slow, like, payoff for the Kai kind of thing that wasn't really sure what it was supposed to do. And then people put it in Hozumi and suddenly they just made the most degenerate boards on turn 3, or on turn 4, sorry, not turn 3. Then Hozumi wasn't that bad, but yeah. But after Hozumi left, or rather after Gyro got nerfed, this card just disappeared from the game. So yeah, not really a bad thing to see this thing go. I don't think didn't really care for this card very much because the only time it was played was in the super degenerate deck that was really hard to play against. So yeah, as for the other cards that aren't condemned, we have Plumeria, which is a big deal for Castel to lose one form of Storm in the fairies now. If you want to give your fairy Storm, you need to rely on either Aria or you need to rely on Frostborn Princess. I suspect that Sekka is being released in the next expansion, so I guess that might be a replacement Storm damage for Castel as well. So yeah, but definitely a big deal to lose her. She's also a big source of healing, especially if you buff her with Castel spell and then use her to heal. You can heal her for a ton. Yeah, overall pretty strong card that is definitely a shame to lose. We also had the Hatsune Miku collab, which was Plumeria, which is interesting, I guess. Arrow Awakening actually did see play here and there in some decks. It had an interesting tutor effect which made it useful in specific circumstances, so there was always that, which is interesting, but overall it didn't really see that much play. I think it was supposed to be released as Cosmos Fang support, but never really ended up fulfilling that role. Guardians of the Wise mostly played when the Philly Fairy Forest deck was a thing, where you could use this to get 3 cards played as well as 2 fairies for 0 PP in Philly under Philly conditions. So yeah, definitely a valuable card in that deck, but other than that, we don't really see this card used much anymore. Area of Gaia, weird control support card that was never really saw play in like anything, even like control decks mostly didn't really play this. So that was a bit weird for Fairy of Gaia. Gale Pierce saw some play in some decks as like an extra bounce that could deal a bit of damage, but mostly it's now played in like decks that really rely on recycling specific cards like Chronos, Lock Forest, and stuff like that. Yeah, not a big deal, I don't think, to lose this card. The 2 PP bounce is a lot worse than a 1 PP bounce anyway. Merchant of the Wood. Interesting card that draws cards. It also evolves, but I don't really think we're gonna care much about losing it. I doubt they're suddenly pivoting into a sort of evil forest kind of deck, so I don't think losing this will matter much in the long run. Beast Lancer, I don't know why this card exists. It's probably for take 2, but we don't really care about that in rotation. So that's it for Forest. Overall, we do lose one entire archetype, which is a big deal if you're a Magachio fan. If you're not a Magachio fan, then I guess your biggest loss is Plumeria, which is a pretty big loss. I will say that, but you don't lose an entire deck out of just losing Plumeria. Hopefully, we'll have to see what they release for Forest this expansion. We haven't really seen any new. We've seen like 1 new Forest card so far, so remains to be seen what Forest is going to be doing next expansion. But it does lose the entire archetype of Magachio, but without Winged Inversion, Magachio is probably a lot worse than it was previously anyway. Let's move on to Sword. So these are the Azvaldt cards that Sword is losing. Because I have no copies of Radial, I only have an animated copy, so that's why this is at 0. So this is what Sword is losing, of course. And let's save the important part for last. Let's first talk about Princess Merveille. Princess Merveille was released as commander support for the toilet, and she was very awkward toilet support because your toilet would invoke on turn 6, but you can't use her to ride the toilet because if you play her, she would just destroy the toilet before you got to ride it. So that was interesting. But so one PP that can't be attacked, it has like some allows you to do some weird things like buffing her and stuff, but unfortunately she never really came to fruition at any point as something particularly worth playing. So yeah, it was okay. Wandering Knight, early on when you wanted to play Rally, Wandering Knight was very valuable. It was our standard. Rally has a lot of these things where it's 2 PP for 2 bodies, but unlike most bodies, Wandering Knight had a lot of value because 1, he had 2 attacks, so if your opponent left it up, you could trade with it. Number 2, he had Rush 2, which allowed you to do things like clear Chasm, although that's clearly not relevant now, but 2 attack Rush on turn 2 allows you to be a much more viable going second. Unfortunately, he just never really stuck around because he didn't really do much in the late game, which made him a lot worse to run. But yeah, when we had less options, we definitely did enjoy running. Well, not enjoy, but we definitely did run Wandering Knight as a rally option early on. Ninja Onslaught never really saw play. We can just skip this. You can play in rally to draw cards, I guess, which is something. Heavy Warrior is mostly a take 2 cards, we're just gonna not talk about that. Iron Rod Defender. Weirdly never really saw any play, I don't think. Even when people, well, in most hero lists, people didn't really play Iron Rod Defender that much because you would be more focused on low drawing stuff like Wind Slasher, Mark Knight, and Emeralds. So Iron Rod Defender was a bit awkward to play in that, but definitely I think this card has potential to do things with its ability to not take more than 1 damage at a time, makes it super sturdy and makes it very annoying when you hide things behind this guy. So unfortunately didn't really end up doing too much. So yeah, a bit of a shame to lose him there. Event Lord, there's just better rally cards out there, I think. This is not really it. When he came out of a General Maximus, he was pretty nuts, but other than that, it's just not really worth running him to do anything with. So yeah, he just got cut, which is fine, I guess. And then we have Wind Slasher, which again part of the hero package, but Valiant is gone. Valiant Fencer is gone anyway, so this guy isn't really here for much anymore. I'll play in the Mars hero deck, which is worth noting. But overall, you play him in hero decks, don't play him anywhere else. Warden of Honor, I thought this card would be really good because it's a 1-cost draw 1 that adds 1 to your rally coin, but unfortunately the fact that A, he's a commander, which means she gets in the way of your commander searches, and B, the fact that he doesn't have like a follower body makes him very weird to use. The main body isn't really useful, or it's like a worse monochrome endgame. So yeah, never really saw much. Well, it's not played in commander sword, of course, but then even rally decks didn't really run this guy all that much, so it's a shame for him. Radial, when Radial was first announced, a lot of people thought that this card would be super toxic and annoying, and I thought it didn't seem very good, and I think I was right. Rally 20 is the ability to attack 3 times per turn, which means it does 18 damage by itself if you evolve him, which is obviously super scary and all, but Rally 20 is like very far, and I just think there's better finishers to run over Radial. Honestly, I think Alwida's just better to run over Radial in my opinion. And of course, the other part that made it look scary was that you have 7 evils, it just banish all enemy followers as well. So it looks like if you have 20 rally and 7 evils, this card would just kill your opponent by itself. And it does do that, it's true, but most of the time you don't really need to rely on this. You don't want to rely on this. It's a 7 PP brick that doesn't do anything in the early game. So that's probably why it wasn't run that much. I mostly ran this as like a one-off in like control decks and like rally decks when there were a lot of particularly annoying control-y sort of survival decks running around that made this feel necessary, but for the most part I wasn't really happy to run Radial in any decks. So yeah, not really a big deal, I think. And then finally we have to talk about the loot package. We just treat the entire loot package as one set because they function together in one set. So we have Deep Sea Scout, Tidal Gunner, Stormwrath, First Mate, and Barbaros. Of course, if you are here on this channel, I think you are familiar with Barbaros at the very least. One of if not my favorite cards, just like art-wise, design-wise, which is why it's the mascot of this channel, I guess. But yeah, definitely a card that I've really liked. Shame to see it go. Loot Sword started as an extremely difficult deck to play when it was first released, because along with Octris there was like so many options for what you could do and what to do during your turns. And then after the release of Rogers, Barbaros and Loot Sword came back to the meta for a little while, and then now it's gone again because without Opulent the deck doesn't survive anymore. But yeah, definitely big shame to lose this archetype. I think I was very attached to this archetype, really enjoyed it a lot, so big shame to see it go, especially Barbaros. But well, without Opulent, honestly, this deck is just not good enough to function right now. So it's probably, I mean, Loot was meta for long enough. I think we can give it a break, right? Been meta for like 2.5 expansions basically. So that's about 50% of the lifetime of a archetype, which is good enough. So yeah, came to see Barbaros and the entire Loot Sword crew go, but I mean, Erica's replacing them, so I guess that's fine. So yeah, that's it for Sword. Overall, Loot is already sort of like gone from the meta anyway, so Sword doesn't really lose anything in the rotation, which is good news. Let's move on to the next class. For the next class we have Rune. This might be actually one of the best expansions ever for Rune, honestly. So the first card we had was Feline Magic, which has a weirdly like sort of bronze throwaway feel, but it did see play as a one-off in a lot of spell boost lists as a little way to just get some finisher damage out with the Electro Kitties. Will do 2 damage for 1 PP. Yeah, interestingly this saw play, but yeah, probably not a big deal to see this one go. We'll talk about the whole Sephi package later on as their own thing, because I think they deserve that much. Tech is what really made was what really made chess playable. When chess was first released, chess was like really bad. Like, you didn't have a way to search for a king, so you would just have to try to draw a king. You didn't find a king, you didn't have damage, but Check made it a lot better, serving as both card draw and damage source with the ability to buff pawn. So yeah, now that chess is gone, we probably don't really give a shit that this card is gone, but when it was first released, it was a big deal for chess. Colossal Summoning, it was played in Dirt when Dirt didn't have many finishers, but now it has enough finishers, so no one bothers with this card anymore. Yeah, it's not a bad card. Well, it's a pretty bad card actually, I take that back, yeah. Ultramarine Ridge is a big deal for Dirt to lose. It's like one of those 1 PP cycle sigils. Although they can probably just print like infinite for new versions of this card without being a big deal, I think. So if they want to support Dirt, they'll probably just print another one of these like in the next expansion. We will have to see. Bipartite Elemental was released as a double support were used to clone a card. I don't think it was played that much though, even though it had decent effects. Unfortunately, the fact that it cost 5 just made it extremely hard to play, so I don't think it was played much. Maybe as a one-off in some spell boost decks, if anything, but probably not really played much at all. Next, the Crystal Scryer. Was an option for Dirt decks when we had less finishers, but now Dirt decks have much more cards to run. They are worth running, so you don't really want to play Crystal Scryer anymore, I don't think so. Yeah, but it was a little bit of help for Dirt before it became a good deck. Yeah, worth giving the nod to Crystal Scryer, I guess. Then we had Crushing Rain, a big deal for spell boost. 0 cost 2 damage, very strong card for spell boost, obviously. One of the key cards to make spell boost playable. One of the key cards that made Adherent of you know that card, the one that the True Lies and False Truths guy. Yeah, it was one of the cards that made that deck so problematic. Next one of the Arcane never really played this card. Is trash. And finally, we are losing lmao, so once again, we are getting a spell boost in the next expansion. So the fact that we're losing so many good spell boost cards like Crashing Rain and lmao and Winged Inversion is probably a big deal. But yeah, we'll have to see how that affects spell boost. It seems like spell boost, the main finishers are going to be Isabel's Elements of Creation and maybe Miser and his Rapid Fire. With I guess Amaryllis' help is probably going to be the core for spell boost next expansion if it continues to be played. We'll have to see. But yeah, overall pretty big losses considering we are going towards a spell boost setup for a rune. We're losing Crushing Rain and lmao, which are big losses. And then we're losing one entire archetype as well in the Condemned package. So we have Saphi, Obsessive Scholar, Devoted Researcher, and Volunteer Test Subject, which are when they were first released, a lot of people thought that they seemed really clunky and goofy to play, but then they quickly became a meta deck in Azvaldt, which just a humble brag, I guess. I did think that Saphi was going to be strong from the beginning, but yeah, it did end up taking a meta spot for the first half of Azvaldt, and then until Wrath and Enhance became the dominant decks in the, but that's not really the point here. Until now, Saphi definitely has a very big fan base. A lot of people are very big fans of the card. You can see we already have the leader now to prove that, and she's still played now, even up till now. People are still trying to make her work, and she does kind of work. She is pretty decent with the whole Vengeful Pact Gilgamesh combo, ability to summon a ton of high attack rush followers that your opponent has to deal with. But yeah, pretty big deal to see this one go. I think we're losing an entire viable archetype. So yeah, a bit of a shame. But I guess we're making room for new things, and by new things probably spell boost, and we'll have to see how spell boost works next expansion. So yeah, that's probably it for Rune. Overall, some pretty big losses, I guess. So we'll have to see how Rune recovers from these losses in the next expansion. So next we have Dragoncraft. So let's go through. There's a lot of interesting cards in here, so let's go through them. So first we have Warden of the Element Claw. This was played when Bahamut was a thing. Once Bahamut stopped being a thing, this card stopped being a thing either as well. It's just not very good. I think the entire point of this was to be a zero cost card that you could use to trigger your Condemned effect whenever you wanted to, because the whole Condemned Dragon gimmick was that it would do things if you play a Condemned card during your previous turn, so I guess a zero cost Condemn was to help with that. But yeah, this card didn't really end up being much of anything except as a draw engine in Bahamut, and that's about it. Rotary Claw Thief, probably similar idea to a Warden of the Adamant Claw. Use it to have a ease to trigger your Condemned condition whenever you wanted. This was just one cost that put a copy of itself into your hand, so it's pretty efficient in terms of trying to get your Condemned effects active by playing it. But outside of Condemned, this card really does nothing. I think it was played and armed at some point, but it was cut as well from there. So yeah, it was an okay card, I guess. So Reinvigorated Dragoon is a 2 PP that Storms mostly played in like Storm Dragon lists, but that's not really like a viable like top list or anything. Not really playable anywhere else, so it's end up not seeing much play, I guess. So next we have Swiftblade Dragon, a big addition for Armed, I think, when Armed was still in the game. The ability to have Rush and also to deal 3 damage for 2 PP after your Armed condition is active was a big deal, especially alongside Blast modes. This card would help you finish opponents off quite well. Yeah, so it was a very strong card when Arm was around, but another Arm is gone. This card is not really anything. Dancing Crab, one of my favorite dragon cards, I think. This card is really... I mean, it was a pretty funny meme, and you can probably see why, right? Its name is Dancing Crab, for God's sake. This was around the time where Crab Brave was a meme as well, so... the combination of Crab Wraith and Dancing Crab was probably a big deal. But I guess mostly people have forgotten about Dancing Crab by now. But yeah, mostly useless card. It does that enhance 8 summoning to Dancing Crabs and evolving then can catch people off guard sometimes. But I think mostly this card didn't really do anything. So yeah, probably not a big deal to lose this card gameplay wise. Hothead Marauder was the token ramp card for Condemn. I think a lot of like a majority of dragon archetypes will always come with their own ramp card, right? So this was the Condemn packages ramp card. Only ramped if you had played a Condemn card last turn, which it's fine. You can play like Azvaldt and then draw into this and then play this, and that would ramp you, right? So I think that was the idea, and that did work fine. It was definitely the Condemn package with Marauder was definitely played in Bahamut for the ramp. So that was pretty solid as far as the Condemn package went, but now that Condemn is rotating out, we don't really care that this card's gone either. It's not really played now either because Dragon just has better things to do, but in the OTK Worm God list, I think this is still played as a ramp option, so there is that worth notating. Dark Mermaid, I don't know why this card exists. Well, the Dragon Slayer did see play as card draw and board clear in some lists. In lists especially that didn't really run many followers, you wanted ways to yeah, in some lists where you run specifically few followers, especially related to Forte and Miriam, you will use this card to help you draw and clear board without having to run followers. And that was just good enough. You also played in this card as a way to just draw cards as well. So yeah, this card saw a surprising amount of play, although I guess a card that says draw 2 cards would see some play. Scorch of Eye Tyrant is, I think Scorch of Tyrant and Antimaria are in a similar boat, so we'll just talk about them together. But these cards were part of the Burn Storm Dragon archetype that everyone thought was going to be completely broken insane when Azvaldt was first released, me included. I also thought that this card was going to be insane because, I mean, look at Antimaria, has 10 damage that can't be blocked, but it turns out that in this day and age, 10 damage that can't be blocked isn't enough anymore. So even after Antimaria was buffed, they ended up not seeing much play. Scorch of Tyrant, similar boat to Antimaria, is just damage, but the package didn't really work, so this card didn't really see much play in the end. Next is Giselle. Giselle is meant to be run alongside Dragon Queen's Castle. People certainly did play Dragon Queen's Castle Giselle meme as a meme deck, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. If this card was at least 7 PP, honestly, you could probably play this with Celestial Worm God, but because it's 6 PP, it doesn't even work there, so this card ended up falling off as only a meme card and not really playable in any serious deck. So that's Dragon Queen Castle, similar boat, but it did see some play in some people did try to fit it in some decks like Buff Dragon tried playing this. Worm God tried playing this as well. There was always the I mean, it's a very high rolly card that you really want to see do something, right? As a sort of meme card, double your fanfare. It's insane. Anything you play, it doubles it. You can deal Lowly Dragon deals 14 damage, Tarax deals 14 damage. So definitely a card that a lot of people wanted to get to work, but unfortunately I don't think this card really ended up working out much at all. Once in a while you could use this to do some insane things, especially like with Venomore also, but yeah, mostly it was relegated to a meme card. So, and as a meme card it will leave. And finally we talk about the villain of Dragon in expansion, Raziel. This card is obscene. When it was first released, I think we all knew it was going to be strong, but it's just like, why? It's like, this card doesn't even fit. The only thing about this card that synergizes with the rest of the Condemned archetype is the fact that you can accelerate her for 1. That's it. She doesn't have any effects that work with Condemn. She doesn't have any Condemn conditions. She was just a generally annoying card to have. And annoying people she did for the entire time she was in rotation, and almost every Dragon deck in rotation played this card while it was still here, because there's no downside really. Like, at worst, she's an insight. At best, she's a 5/8 ward. Well, at best, she's a 5, like, 15 ward that Buff Dragon can play for, like, 7 PP. And it also clears followers and heals you and can't be destroyed by effects. And the way her board clear is probably the best possible board clear, which is stat-based board clear. Which means that, it's not damage, so followers that can't be damaged can still be cleared by this. It's not destruction, so followers that can't be destroyed can still be destroyed by this. And even followers that manage to survive the -5/-5 still have their stats heavily nerfed and probably can't do anything with -5 attack anyway, so like... And this card was just gross, and we're definitely very happy to see this one go. Buff Dragon is still mostly here, but the fact that they lose Azvaldt is definitely a huge deal for, I think, us. Buff Dragon loses a way to heal as well as a way to clear board, and a way to abuse their stat boosting by making a super disgusting ward that can't be destroyed by effects. So definitely very, very happy to see this piece of crap go. The rest of the cards probably don't matter, but this card is so big that definitely happy to see this one go. But it's also worth noting that Buff Dragon doesn't lose anything else of note, so there's a decent chance that Buff remains meta in the next expansion. We will have to see how that goes. The sort of pseudo Azvaldt replacement they released, Rolla at the very least, as is conditional, so Buff Dragon probably can't abuse her as hard as they abused Azvaldt, but we'll have to see how that goes when next expansion comes. But that's it for Dragon, just basically loses one card, and that's this one. And maybe that's enough, we'll have to see. Let's move on to the next class here, which is Shadow. I drink some water. So a lot of very big deal cards in here. First we have Loyal Ghost Pup. See some play now in mid-range Shadow, but mostly it was a Ghost support card we play alongside Masquerade Ghost, and it was definitely a good card when Masquerade Ghost was the meta deck with Ghost Shadow, but now that Masquerade Ghost is gone, it's probably not a big deal that this card is going as well. Yeah, really solid card, 1 PP that summons a Ghost. Nothing really, no really complaints about this. It even has an enhanced 8 for a late game finisher if you're desperate. The Dust Reborn was a very interesting card. 1 PP Reanimate 2 is actually very good efficiency. PP efficiency. It was definitely used in a lot of decks to summon something for just 2 PP, which is good. Enhanced 5 to Reanimate 7 is also not that bad. You can use to reanimate stuff like the freaking Pirate Captain. Mostly didn't really see too much like meta play, I don't think, from the Dust Reborn. I think it was played in Last Words during Azvaldt though, so it's worth noting there. Yeah, I mean, the ability to summon a 2-cost Last Words for 1 PP is definitely pretty efficient. A card that I think you always consider when you're putting a deck together. You always think about whether you want to run from the Dust Reborn just because it's so efficient for just being 1 PP spell. So yeah, definitely a solid card. Probably not super key to anything though, so probably not a big deal that this is leaving. Fallen Sergeant was played early on when Last Words was meta in Azvaldt, but now in the modern Last Words, there's really no reason to run Fallen Sergeant anymore. You'd rather just play Azvaldt to for your Condemn Search. So yeah, Fallen Sergeant definitely not play anymore now. But it was definitely a solid card when it was in the old Last Words deck, but not anymore. We have Sweet Soul Necromancer, a BR card that was part of the, I guess, the BR stuff that they really mentioned, but definitely whenever BR was played, this card was definitely a good card because, I mean, it just heals you. There's nothing bad you can say about that. It just draws a card and heals you, like, that's just good. It's just healing. Anytime you want to play a card deck with BR, this was one of the cards you would quickly consider because it's such a solid card with a solid inoffensive effect. So yeah. Not Skeleton, a BR support card that was never really run. It was a bit clunky to use at 2 PP. That doesn't do anything by itself. You can't really stick this on board because your opponent would just clear this, so you have to play this and then play BR cards along with it. Not super efficient. You can use this to evolve to berry cards. We ran this in Soul Taker like once in a while, I think, as a way to answer boards while drawing into your key pieces, but in any real barrel right deck, we never really ran this card because there was not really any need 2 or any space 2 for that matter. Next we have we can talk about the Isn't that and I guess Colonel come in the same set because they are basically played together. You definitely, I don't think you ever play them separately. Maybe you do. Definitely the key cards of the Last Words deck when they were first released and they were meta in Azvaldt. Not Last Words is not meta, it's like most kind of meta again. Yeah, definitely relying heavily on both Colonel and as well. So the fact that they are both rotating out is probably a big hit. The Last Words, it might honestly just kill the deck. It doesn't look like we're really getting much Last Word support for the next expansion either. So we might be seeing the loss of Last Words Shadow, which is a shame because Dark Atlas is such a cool card. But we will have to see what else they release in the next expansion for that to see how that goes, I guess. Yeah, that's it for Instant Dead and Colonel. Probably very, very big losses that we're definitely set to see go. Next, you have Ghastly Banishment, initially released as Ghost support and was a disgustingly strong finisher in Ghost Shadow because you would just die on turn 7. Like every time, like opponent would just play Masquerade on turn 5, Masquerade would come back out on turn 6, and then on turn 7 you just play Ghastly Banishment and you just die. And that's how it felt to play against Ghost Shadow. Now that Masquerade is gone, this is played in mid-range Shadow as an aggro card to a lesser value than it did when Masquerade was meta, but definitely still a solid card as a finisher in a mid-range Shadow. So it's a pretty unfortunate hit, I think, for mid-range Shadow to see this one go as well. So we will have to see if I mean we do get a replacement, kind of, I guess. We have Atom, which is 7 PP as well, when does like what's 7 damage to the enemy leader, I think, with just 3 PP. So yeah, we do get kind of a replacement finisher, but it's a bit more conditional than this, I think. But we'll have to see how Atom does. Probably mid-range Shadow, it's still gonna be run. It's probably gonna be playing Atom over in place of Ghastly Banishment. It does lose the early game value of Ghastly Banishment though, as an ability to summon 2 ghosts for 2 PP, which is pretty solid as well. So yeah, definitely a big hit for a mid-range Shadow. Next we have Soul Sniper. This is the one of the anime cards. I think a lot of people thought they would release some support for this archetype at some point. To make this card good, you know, deal AoE 2 damage, and maybe do some cool shit with it, but it ended up not being supported as an archetype like ever. So this card just fades into obscurity at this point because it doesn't really do anything. Which is a shame, definitely, I think. Next we have Underworld Lieutenant. Quickly cut to about like a one-off in Last Word lists, I think, because you would rather, once again, you would rather keep the condemned names thin to make sure Fallen Sergeant and now Azvaldt draws you the best possible outcome, so you don't really want to run Underworld Lieutenant anymore. But it does see play mid-range now though, so yeah, definitely a card that sort of revived itself in mid-range Shadow to play again. Decently, it's a pretty solid card in mid-range now, but probably not really a key card, so maybe not a big deal to see this one go. Its role is like kind of replaceable, I guess. The fact that it summons a lot of wards for PP is really good though, so maybe a bit of a shame there, but not the biggest loss, I don't think. So next we have Warden of Corpses. Even when Barrowite became meta, this card wasn't played. I did play this card when I did play Barrowite in Azvaldt when Miroel was just new, and I did run this card. It's not a very good card. 4 PP for 2/2, and at the end of the turn it draws the card. It doesn't even draw immediately. So, I mean, the point of this card was to reanimate it with Miroel, so that after you played Miroel and used her Barrowite, you would get this out to draw more cards. But this didn't really do enough, I think. So this card was never really good for anything. So didn't really see much play, unfortunately. I do like the design of this card though. I think this card's a nice design. Bit of a shame there. Next we have Miroel. Miroel was a meme when she was first released. Barrowite just wasn't good, and then Barrowite became meta immediately in the next expansion. And then Lakandula rotated out, and Barrowite faded out into obscurity again. So yeah. But for the time that Ferreira as Meta Mirror was definitely the key card of the deck. Pretty fun card, I think. Just deals damage. But yeah, now that Bellrite is not really playable anyway, it's probably not a big deal on go. Next we have Carrot One. Carrot One, Bellrite support. Used to summon or cost follower. Definitely a big deal to see this one go. Of course, it's played in one of the top meta decks right now, Helio Shadow, and it's one of the key pieces of Helio Shadow, in fact. With Carabon gone, I think Helio takes a very big hit. It's still a playable deck, probably just barely, maybe. But the loss of Carabon's Amulet makes it a lot harder to high roll with Helio, so yeah, definitely very reliant on Misguided Maiden now that Carabon is gone. I played her as a Soul Taker meme, to play Soul Taker on turn 7, but yeah, it was okay, I guess. Not really that good of a card, Carrot One, I think, so not that big of a deal. Well, you know, it's a big deal to see this one go. Sorry, let me correct myself. It's a big deal. It was played actually a lot of meta decks, weirdly. It was played in BR when BR was meta, and then now it's played in Helio. So yeah, Helio will have to take the hit of losing Carrot One, I guess. And finally, we have Colonel. Colonel, similar both to Instant Death, which we already covered, so yeah, that. So overall, Shadow loses some very, very big cards. Ghastly Banishment is a big loss for mid-range. Instant and Colonel is a big loss for Last Words, and Carrot One is a big loss for Helio. So all of Shadow's current decks lose some pretty big cards. So we will have to see if the new cards in the next expansion will be able to make up for it. Yeah, we'll have to see how Shadow goes next expansion. Look at Blood. So we'll talk about the whole Wrath package in a moment. Like the whole Condemned Wrath package in a moment. We'll talk about the rest first. I guess we'll talk about the Wrath cards at whole later on. Let's start with Signa here. So we do see that they're pushing Evil Blood again with Mono next expansion, but yeah, also rotating out Signa. I think this was on purpose. Probably Signa would be too strong if it was still in the game with, along with Mono and Evil Blood. He's just like what, 4 PP, cheap 1 PP 4 damage with alongside Mono, which is probably very strong. And the fact that she evolves for free also makes it so that Mono's spells being limited to Machina followers will not really affect Signa in any way as well. So yeah, probably for the best that Signa's rotating out a lot when Mono comes in, because this is definitely a key piece of the Evil Blood deck. Very strong card in Evil Blood. Ambush means that you can keep her on board and use her whenever you want. She removes followers and can deal damage face as well. Very solid card, so probably big loss considering we are moving in a bit of an Evil Blood direction right now. This is a Wrath card. So next we have Whirligig. This is I think this is just take 2. This is just take 2. Yeah, this is just take 2. Even in take 2, I don't think this was good. Next we have Warden of Decay, one of the 2 Condemned Warden cards. This card was really weird, and I'm not really sure what this was meant to ever do. A weird Vengeance card. Even in Vengeance, you wouldn't play this because it doesn't do anything. It just heals you, which puts you out of Vengeance, which is like, why would you want to do that? But that it didn't do damage or anything. It's a defensive card, which is not what you do with Vengeance. Vengeance does not really want defensive cards, I don't think. So yeah, this card only saw play in some weird meme decks, like some weird Control Blood decks, as well as Pazuzu. But not really any serious decks. Frost Ogre is a Pazuzu card as well. And it's also a... Was it a Take 2 card? It might have been a Take 2 card, I don't remember clearly. I don't have Genomuel, which is also like... not really... Didn't really see any serious play. We tried it out in Milnard, like at the start of the expansion, but now it's not really worth running anything anymore. You can play weird like control lists with this, I guess, to just if you're low your Motor's max health so that you can finish them off. It's like a control win con, I guess, but mostly didn't really see much play, I don't think. And finally we move on to the Wrath cards, because there's a lot of important cards to talk about here, so gotta buckle in, I guess. So Blood is getting Urias back, which is definitely worth noting. Urias is one of the strongest Wrath payoffs I think ever. He just does so much stuff and is like relevant for the whole entire game because of the amount of effects he gives you. So I guess they're rotating out most of the Wrath package while Urias comes back in as, I don't know, maybe an insult to Wrath or something. But let's talk about first Garo Death, of course, one of the major Wrath finishers. 11 damage for 4 PP. Pretty strong card. It's not as good now, unfortunately, just because Wrath has lost a Vania. When this card was much easier to activate with Vania and Vulnerate in the game, this card was better, but now that Vulnerate is gone, this card not so good anymore. Vulnerate and Vania are gone, sorry, so card not so good anymore. Yeah, but I guess with Urias in the game, they can't afford to let Gyaradeath run around because there's too much Wrath payoff in the game, I guess. Demonic Drummer, another big Wrath card to lose. Raging Commander, big Wrath card to lose that makes the entire Wrath package work. Vicious Blitzer was a card that is not always run in Wrath, it's mostly run in aggro blood decks. In dedicated Wrath, you rather keep your Wrath card, your condemned cards to just Gyaradeath and Steamrolling Tank, because that way you can make OTKing with Gyaradeath much more accessible. But Vicious Blitzer is still playable, of course, it's just that it gets in the way of the searches. It's worth noting, a Steamrolling Tank, very solid Wrath card. Then on turn 1, the ward is very helpful. Having 0 attack helps you board lock your opponent, and he heals you every time you take damage, which helps offset the Wrath damage you take. So you're not killing yourself as hard as you would normally playing Wrath. Flautist is just solid heal. Like, there's a very inoffensive card here in Wrath, it just heals you for a ton, so definitely a big deal to lose this. Now that Wrath is getting Urias back, if this was still in the game, you'd be very happy. Howling Scream, another very good Wrath enabler card, 1 PP inside that also pings you, which is solid. Vicious Blitzer we already talked about, I guess. Machine General Grandiosity was super strong when it was just 1 PP, but now it's 2 PP, it's not good anymore, so don't really care about this card anymore, I don't think. Demonic Drummer, another solid Wrath support card. That big deal to lose this, considering we're still going in a Wrath direction a bit. Maybe not completely Wrath, we're split between like Wrath and Evo, I guess, for Blood. So Wrath is losing some key cards, so maybe Evo is the way to go, I guess. Overall, losing a lot of key cards for Wrath is a big deal, considering Urias is coming back, which would have otherwise made Wrath a certainly playable deck. But yeah, we'll have to see how Blood goes. In terms of mono, Signa's probably the only loss for mono, so maybe still workable. We'll have to see how mono goes in the expansion, hopefully well, because I do like mono. It was the second deck I've ever played in this game, so I do want to play mono again, so hopefully they do support mono properly. So yeah, that's it for Blood. Let's move on to Haven. So for Haven, we are losing some interesting cards, so let's look through. First, Luminescent Gem, a key component of any Amulet Haven deck. 1 PP that draws you an Amulet. The only awkward thing about this card is that when it pops on your enemy's turn, it doesn't draw anything for some reason, so it would definitely be a welcome trade-off for Haven if they release some replacement for this that also worked on your turn. Because the fact that it works on only your turn is a bit weird. It's surprisingly relevant sometimes. Oh, sorry. So yeah, very replaceable cards are probably not a big deal. Unless they don't replace it, then maybe it becomes a big. I don't even know this card existed, so let's just ignore this. It's probably no one cares. But this line is interesting. It's it has some applications in Amulet, but it's mostly for Crystallized Haven, which is not a deck anymore, so probably not the most relevant card ever. Amethyst Lion, so yeah, Age of the Commons, very big hit for Heal Haven. at least half of the heal Haven games are won just using Agent of the Commandment, so the fact that option is gone now is a big deal. It also the difference between this and, I mean, we have segment now, but the difference between a 2 PP and a 3 PP ambush is so huge. Like with Agent of the Commandment, you can just set this out on turn 5 and win the game next turn, while with segment that isn't an option because, well, first of all, segment doesn't draw another copy of itself, and also 2 segments would cost 6 PP, which is not nearly as good as costing 2 PP. So yeah, definitely a big loss for this for Hugh Haven. Honestly, it might kill the entire deck just by losing Agent of the Commandment. It's definitely a lot worse than it would be with Angel of the Commandments. Next we have Sacred Sheep. It's mostly played in some weird control decks like Amulet, OTK Haven, but now that we don't really have any decks that have room to play this anymore, I don't think it's a big deal. The banish is losing the banish is fine. We have a neutral now has like a 1 cost banish, so like every card has every class has access to banish now, so that's not a big deal, I don't think. Like I was saying, Temple was a strong card for Amulet Haven when that was a Amulet OTK Haven when that was a card, when that was a deck. You would just use this to stall out until your turn 8 or turn 9 and you will OTK with Unariel. So yeah, pretty big loss, I guess. Kind of. Not. I think even more that Amulet Haven decks don't even play Sacrosanct anymore just because there's a limit to what it stops and what it doesn't stop. So yeah, not really big deal, I don't think. Next, Warden of the Wings, a solid card for Amulet decks. Even modern Amulet decks probably still run Warden of the Wings because of its ability to be played for 1 PP basically and draw you an Amulet. I put a 3-point Amulet as well, which is a guaranteed way to draw Holy Serpent's Blessing, which is one of the key cards in modern Amulet lists. We'll have to see if that changes with the release of Selena next expansion. But yeah, pretty solid Amulet support card that is probably a bit of a shame to lose actually. The fact that it evolves for free is also relevant with when Amulet lists played with Unariel and Aether, so there's that as well. So Amulet decks might not be able to run Aether anymore, although without Unariel, worry whether that's actually relevant in any case, and you probably wouldn't play Aether in Amulet anymore. But yeah, we'll have to see. Holy Beast Ruins mostly take 2 card, don't really see any play. Elite Tempest is a very solid card for Amulet actually. It's a solid removal card for you to answer opponent's boards while advancing your Amulet condition, because you can make this cost 0 and use this here. Especially combos well with a Warden of the Wings and Seraph of the True Key. Warden of the Wings is a way for you to for 1 PP deal AoE 5 damage, which is pretty strong. And yeah, it's a way for you to survive in the early game while advancing your Amulet condition. So yeah, big deal to lose this. Pretty solid support card for Amulet decks. Next we have Aralde. Even after getting buffed, it was mostly relegated to a useless card. Even Heal wouldn't want to play this. It only started seeing play in like Lena now, which I guess it is a pretty decent loss for Lena. The fact that he cycles, and also the fact that he gives you a leader effect to heal, and he's a 6 cost follower. All pretty solid things for Lena, but I don't think it's the biggest deal. It's not like you lose a key card or anything. It's not a key combo piece or anything, so probably not that big of a loss, although it's a bit of a shame, I guess. Ruby Falcon never really... Well, it did end up seeing some play in Crystallize here and there, but never ended up getting the shine except in Crosscraft where you use this to give Eden Storm, which was... that was something. I've heard rumors of like an Evo list that uses Ruby Falcon with Grimnir and Alice, the OTK people, now in rotation, but haven't really seen much of it, so yeah. But if you want to get your hands on that meme, I guess you have like a couple of days left before this entire set loses. What does Haven seem to do? Haven seems to be... Selena is like Amulet, right? So I guess they're probably leaning towards an Amulet Haven deck, which is cool because Amulets were the original class identity for Haven, I think, so we shall see that. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Executor of the Oath. mainly a Lena card, although it's a pretty solid Lena card, so maybe Lena is quite sad to lose this one. The ability to play this for 0 cost is pretty solid. It heals and it's a ward that costs 0, which is definitely a solid card in context of Lena. In Heal Haven, though, this card was just bad because you will only want to run one common dem card, and that was Ancient of the Commandments. And finally, we have Unario. Unario was an OTK card when Holy Lightning Bird was still in the game, but once Holy Lightning Bird rotated out, this card stopped being relevant as well because you can't OTK with it anyway at the end. What the hell do they even do? Alright, even in modded Amulet list, I don't think we ran this card. We just played Seraph of the True Keys endgame. Maybe you can... I guess you can play Seraph and then use Unario as a finisher after that, which was a thing, but probably not anymore now. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame for Amulet, I guess. Overlay, definitely a big hit for Heal Haven overall. Amulet also loses some key engine cards, so we'll have to see if we get any replacements for those to make Amulet playable in the next expansion. Most likely we will though, since they seem to be pushing Amulets for next expansion, so we'll have to see there. Yeah. And finally we have a Portal. So Portal, well, let's talk about one thing first, which is the entire enhanced package. We are losing that, which is a very big deal because, I mean, it's an entire archetype and it's a pretty, like, it's a fairly evergreen archetype as well, because really all they have to do to support it is just to release enhanced cards. It can make use of any enhanced cards. So, it definitely would have potential to be playable in like basically every expansion if it wasn't for the fact that it was rotating out now. So the fact that it's rotating out now is, I guess, a bit of a shame, especially for Cutthroat fans. But yeah, I guess Cutthroat fans have to find something else to play in the next expansion. But there goes the entire Cutthroat package, I guess. Mostly a meme when they were first released, and then they quickly became meta when Judith was released, and then Judith got nerfed, which immediately made the deck fall off. Then now Judith is unnerfed, but I think the damage is done. Cutthroat is still just like a mid deck at best. That was the entire Cutthroat package. Puppet Worker, I wouldn't really consider part of the Cutthroat package. It's a solid standalone card as well. We ran this in Machina Portal as a way to anti-board lock tag, because against Machina Portal, if you get board locked, you can't get your followers destroyed, and if you can't get your followers destroyed, then you can't get your Gretina invoked. But with the power of Puppet Workout, you can make any board a threat, so your opponent has more trouble ignoring it. Yeah, a solid card. I don't know if we're getting a replacement for it. We haven't seen any replacement for Puppet Workout, so if without a replacement, the Academic Portal, Machina Portal might struggle to deal with board locks, so we'll have to see how that goes for them. Judith is mostly an enhanced card. The fact that it has the all trait is mostly just for it to be an condemn trait. I don't think any other trait besides condemn has been relevant for Judith like at any point, so that's Judith, I guess. This is an enhanced support card. Even Artifact doesn't play this card, so yeah. Enhanced card again. And Rogue Puppeteer, which exists, I guess? I didn't even know this card existed. Yeah. One of the trigger is played in some Machina decks, not all of them. The fact it's a 3PP is a bit heavy. But yeah, it's a pretty decent card. Honestly, it's not really that bad to run in modern Machina, I think, with the direction that they seem to be taking Machina, which is a more control-oriented style. For Portal, at least. This card might not have been bad, but it's going, so... this is an enhanced card. There's also enhanced support. I don't think this would be relevant for anything besides enhance. What can you even give Storm that's worth giving and Storm for just 4 PP? Craft Engineer, I don't think this card was ever really played for anything. Yeah. Women's Defense Unit, once again, another card that probably wasn't really played for anything. Finally, we have Kirzael, who is getting a leader next expansion. Unfortunately, Kirzael is a very, very, very strong Machina card. Anytime you play build a Machina deck, you just slam Kirzael in because it's such a powerful card with so much value. It clears 2, summons 2 Wardens and buffs your Machina followers, especially now, since we're leaning towards Machina support in Portal. This buff might become more relevant than to more than just him summoning the Wardens. And also because with things like Baphomet, might be looking at a more control-oriented Machina list. For Portal, losing KSIL is a very big deal as a solid mid-game play for you to deal towards your late game, which I guess you're gonna play something like Technolord to finish the game off with. Yeah, definitely a big loss for Machina Portal, unfortunately, as we are getting a new big Machina payoff, I guess. So we'll have to see if Machina Portal can still survive without Cursael in it. Yeah, so that's it for Portal. Some big losses. We lose one entire archetype, a solid Machina support card for aggressive Machina decks, and a solid general Machina support card. So considering they are leaning towards Machina, and Resonance, I guess, is also an option. But we seem to be mostly leaning towards Machina for Portal, so we'll have to see if losing Cursael can come back from losing Cursael, I guess. Yeah, that's it for I guess all the Azvaldt cards. So some pretty big losses for some classes. Forest loses an entire archetype, Sword loses an entire archetype, Rune loses an entire archetype, Dragon loses one card, which is Drazael, 7 mana 5/8. One of the most cruel cards in rotation right now. Class actually. And loses Shadow loses a ton of key support for all of their decks. That just mid-range loses cards, Last Words loses cards, Healer loses cards, Blood loses a lot of key Wrath cards, which is a big deal for the Wrath cards that we are getting. One of the legendaries is a Wrath card, and Urias is also a Wrath card, so that we're losing a Wrath there is a bit of a shame. We're not losing a Wrath, but we're losing a lot of key Wrath support cards. Even losing some Amulet support cards is a shame for the Amulet leaning releases they shouldn't be getting, and Machina is losing Cursael, so all the classes are definitely losing some pretty important cards. So we will have to see if how the next expansion goes. But yeah, that's it for this video, I guess. Overall, I think Azvaldt was a very impactful expansion in terms of card power, and also thematically, it's one of the coolest, well-designed sets. I think a lot of people like how the Condemned cards came out with the whole like setup of the prisoners versus the wardens and stuff. Yeah, that's it for this video. Biggest loss in my opinion is of course Barbaros. Even though it's not even playable right now, I still would really rather not lose Barbaros, I guess. So yeah, that's it for this video, probably my last video of the see you in the next expansion. Well, in terms of videos at least. In terms of stream, I'll probably do a stream looking over the new set when they release all the cards, which is probably like the day before, which is on Monday, I guess. But yeah, that's it for today, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.